So I might get the artists to come up and sit down. So if we can get KMG, Shane, Ed Hicks and JEKS to come up and just take a seat. And as they come up, I just want to say, first of all, thanks to the Waterford Gallery for hosting us today. It's a lovely space and it's lovely to be actually in the city centre. And in particular, the street that we're on has just been transformed over the last kind of 5 to 10 years. So as many of you know, it is our 10th anniversary of the Walls, and the Walls started back in 2014, and the vision was to sort of bring life back into the city. So anyone who's been kind of coming into Waterford for the last 10 years will know what a change and what a transformation. And I mean, it's not just down to the Walls, but so many other fantastic projects, and so much hard work has gone into creating this lively place. Walking around on a Sunday in Waterford 5 years ago, you just wouldn't have seen people milling around buying coffees, so it's really nice. I know that Pat already congratulated the team, but I'd like to just personally congratulate the hard work that's gone into this festival. I know the project runs year round, but the preparation that goes into the festival is also year round. So a big thank you to Gabe, John, Kerry, and the wider volunteers who put so much work into it. And then in terms of this chat, I'm under strict instructions that it's very relaxed, which suits me fine, which is great. I just want to make sure that you get a chance to ask questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce, I know they're trying to record this, so I'm trying to speak into the microphone. My head is bobbing around, so I want to see them. I might just hold it. Can I just take it out and hold it? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I will. Thank you. Will I? Okay.
Do you want to stand?
No, I'll sit down. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, so I can see who I'm talking to. Yeah, great. Thank you.
And I'll give that.
Fantastic work going on over here to record it as well, which is great. Okay, thank you very much.
This is very directional, Mike, so you have to speak to
Wow, it feels like NASA in here, doesn't it? Okay, so we'll get on with it. So first what I'm going to do is, you will have walked around the streets and seen all of the art, but it's, often you can see the artist way up on a cherry picker, or they're covered in, they're wearing a mask. So you're actually seeing 4 artists here.
Cool.
Sometimes artists prefer not to be seen, and we'll talk about that too. We might get into all of it. But I'm going to introduce you to each of the artists with a little background, and I know very little myself, so this is going to be a chance for us to hear you speak. But first up, I want to introduce Ed Hicks. So there's Ed over on the left in the stripes. And behind you, you will see the piece that Ed has painted for the festival. So just to give you a little bit of background, it's his first visit to Waterford Walls. He began graffiti in 1991 and turned to street art in 2001 before becoming a muralist and commercial painter full-time in 2004. He draws inspiration from classical paintings, and he transforms ordinary walls into captivating and thought-provoking visual stories. So you can definitely see the influence there, even as we talk about it. It's just so impactful and vibrant. His distinctive style blends bold colours with intricate details, transforming urban landscapes into dynamic art spaces. So that's a little bit about Ed, only the kind of the bio bit. So we're going to get into it in a minute, Ed. But next up we have KMG. Thank you. Thank you. So this is KMG over here on our right. KMG is a Scottish artist who has been working in the world of street art for over a decade. Her work explores themes of mythology, feminism, and the history of our local landscapes, using characters as a means of connecting with the viewer and engaging them in dialogue. With her roots firmly planted in the Highlands of Scotland, she has grown up questioning the idea of reclaiming land and her own cultural identity. And I know it's your first time to this part of the world. You've been to Northern Ireland, but this is your first time into Waterford and the Republic of Ireland. Yeah. So welcome.
Thanks.
So next we have JEKS. JEKS is here to the left here, and JEKS is from North Carolina, USA, and he's known for his photorealistic murals and striking portraits and vibrant colours. His work often pays homage to pop culture icons, historical figures, and local personalities, capturing their essence with incredible detail and depth, which you can see there. And he really seeks to inspire and connect communities. And it's his first time at Waterford Walls as well. And JEKS, you've been busy. just a little bit busy. We also have this one, which I think many of you will have seen, Rashida Adeleki. I think that was painted the first Thursday of the week before last. And since then, you've painted about 5 murals, did I hear? So he doesn't hang around, this guy, at all. So next up, we have Shane O'Malley. So Shane is in the blue t-shirt. Welcome, Shane, from Ireland. And Shane has been, I believe this piece is now finished. Was that finished yesterday, Shane, or this morning?
I finished it actually about an hour ago.
Well done. I love it. I just love it.
I'm good at time management.
You're returning the walls, and you painted in Lismore Town last year. And your work explores colour, forms and symbols through painting and is a meeting point of studio practice and public mural art. So your strong use of colour stems from his origins in graffiti culture. You began painting graffiti in 2001 and is drawn to both the meditative, slow process of painting with a brush in the studio and the faster act of spray painting and making art in public spaces. So that's my very kind of, taken from the website, written down perfectly. Here they are. But let's get into yourselves, the artists. What I might do is just we have a couple of topics that we'd like to cover, and really what we want to know is just learn a little bit more about yourselves, your process, and just have a chat, basically. So we might kick off with maybe Ed. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this whole world of mural art.
Mural painting?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Or tell us your story.
Working a rubbish job in a toy shop in Southampton, drawing with a bunch of graffiti experience in the past, and putting up characters as well, getting more into the street art scene. But I just started leaving. I was making so much work, making so many canvases, making so many drawings and like stickers and bits on cardboard and stuff, because there was nothing to do in the work. No one came into the shop at all, so I was just doing my stuff. And I would just leave it out on the street every single day. There'd be canvases left out every single day. And eventually some people who were in the graffiti crew, do you want to just do something that's actually going to stay? It's like, yeah, sure. So jumped on that, and that was, and didn't stop.
Wow, how long ago was that?
That was 20 years ago.
Wow, so what would, in terms of your process, would you tell us a little bit about how you've gone from that to this?
Sure, yeah. I spent a long time doing... When you do a graffiti wall, there's letter pieces, characters, and then occasionally maybe someone does a background, if you're lucky. And I'd done letter pieces, I'd done characters, so I decided to just stick to doing just landscapes and backgrounds and things where the background becomes the foreground, where there isn't any kind of focal point, where there isn't the eye of the duck, where you don't look at the duck, you just look at the eye, as a David Lynch quote anyway. And realised I was kind of starting to carry on the tradition of British landscape painting, people like John Martin and Joseph Wright of Derby and people like that. I know that sounds very grandiose, but using the colours of dawn and dusk, I wanted to make something just that went in, something that drew people in. That was it.
And it's quite three-dimensional. It really does kind of feel like you're going to get you could almost walk in there. And is that what you're aiming for? Do you like people to feel that they can really get lost in?
Well, yeah, that's why there's never any characters, never people in the piece, because you are the person in the piece. And it may seem like the end, it may seem like the beginning. It's kind of it's kind of up to the viewer. So there is something of almost a moral choice is the light at the end of the tunnel an oncoming train or something a bit more hopeful.
Yeah.
Very broad brushstrokes in terms of kind of the human condition, but it seemed like it was something that I felt was a meaningful gesture to be putting out into the public sphere. Yeah. Just go, here's the big dramatic thing, here's possibly the end, here's the apocalypse. The apocalypse is always happening. Here might be the beginning of things. And now what? What are you going to do? What do you have? If there's this much hope, are you okay with that? What are you going to... What's... Think, McFly.
So you're trying to get a reaction out of people. You like that emotional...
Yeah. It could be. That's why it doesn't work in the day. That's why it's always the colours of dawn and dusk, beginnings and endings. Mm-hmm. And
So you would recommend like viewing your work at dawn or dusk? That's when the light is a little bit softer and lower and...
Well, I try and put those colours in anyway. If you view it any time, if you've got a minute, you know.
I can ask, where are you when you're painting that? Where's your head? Are you immersed? Are you, how do you do, in terms of the interaction of the street and people walking by, how do you feel about all of that?
People. Always talk to people. Always try and talk to people, because that any kind of information you can give is like the little plaque at the side of the piece. We don't get plaques like that. So all you have is word of mouth, and you can't really control how people are going to engage in your work, because it's outside of the magic circle of the gallery.
Yeah.
The second half of street art is street. So you don't control that. So it's good to talk to people to go, it's actually about this.
Yeah, that's nice.
Or it's not. Maybe it's not to them. It's up to them. People say, what's this? What's this about? It's like, it's kind of up to you, buddy. It's not my house.
Very good. Thank you. Well, we might go over to KMG and just from left to right, and two very different styles, I would say.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your work and how you got here?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first time I painted on the street, I was 16. I grew up in the northeast of Scotland, so a very different landscape from a lot of places in the UK and abroad. The graffiti then was very social political. I grew up at the tail end of the Thatcher era, so most graffiti on the street wasn't actually the graffiti you see now, but it was more statements and political and activism. So when I was 16, 9/11 had just happened, so my first pieces in the street were a reaction to the Islamophobia that we were seeing, which is kind of again happening now. So my first pieces were actually more activism. And then I started doing more character work. The more exposure I got to books and access to kind of the graffiti and the street art scenes across Europe and America. And then I just started focusing more and more on characters. I just really like the way you can use a character to communicate. People instantly connect with characters because they see them as a human form, whether or not they take human form. I thought that was a really interesting way to provoke people's reactions and conversations. I actually studied fine art and got kind of bored quite quickly of doing realist work, which then pushed me into more abstract direction, which has kind of led to the style that I'm at now. I like the challenge and simplified work. There's nothing to hide behind. You've got your composition. If it is not right, it looks terrible. So you kind of need to dial it in. So I like that challenge of taking something really simple and trying to make it look good, because you can't hide behind anything. You can't hide behind any fades or busyness. And I really enjoy that challenge. Then my work is just kind of inspired by my own heritage and culture. I think maybe you ask that later.
Yeah, but you can get into it now. Let's keep it fluid. Yeah, whatever you want to go.
So yes, I'm really interested in heritage and culture and what takes us to where we are in current day. I grew up with storytelling, and now I have my own son. I've kind of noticed that storytelling's gone out the window because it's been replaced by TV, it's been replaced by the internet, by video games. So we've lost that sense of being told stories at bedtime or being telling stories as families, which is what I grew up with. So I kind of like thinking about that as a theme within my own work and looking at the stories I was told growing up in the mythology and the folklore, and how we're kind of seeing it lost in time because people aren't telling those stories. So I kind of want to use my artwork to reclaim that and use it as a tool to create these kind of conversations. Yeah.
That makes sense. And in terms of, so the preparation that goes in behind this, would you be researching that? I mean, yeah. So
wherever I paint in the world, I try and research the local mythology and folklore. Sometimes that's easier because, in Celtic countries, our folklore and our mythology is so rich. Even when you go to England, sometimes there's none. You can go parts of England where there's literally no mythology or folklore. It comes from the Celts or the Romans, or so it's quite interesting. It can be more difficult in some areas than others to come up with the material. You really have to dig deep or communicate with the local community and kind of do some engagement where you ask them stories, because it can be even stories about local legends or local heroes. It doesn't necessarily have to be gods or goddesses. So you do kind of need to, I feel you need to do research, but that's kind of what I enjoy, yeah.
Okay, and in terms of this piece, is this based on something?
Yeah, this is Morrigan, who's a Celtic goddess.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a bit of a bad rep. But yeah, she's got quite an interesting story. Yeah.
Fantastic. We might get the story later.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you.
No worries.
So we might go to JEKS. Welcome, JEKS. Just in terms of your own background, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got here? And
I actually got into graffiti first off, painted, more so just tagging and stuff until kind of interested in piecing, characters and stuff. Fell in love with just the medium of spray painting. And I bounced between music and
that's good.
bounced between music and art. Kind of ping-ponged it for many years of my life, and just kind of took the plunge and tried realism and portraiture about 7 years ago. And just kind of when you do something and it just kind of clicks, and you're like, oh, I know how to do this. It was really cool, so I just dove in head first, and I've been painting professionally ever since.
So 7 years ago, you decided to just give it a bash, and
Yeah,
it just clicked.
Yeah.
You hadn't
Yeah.
trained, or you hadn't.
No, just painting graffiti letters, and
Yeah.
I studied and mainly just graffiti, not so much fine art. So I don't have that background, but yeah, just kind of once you fall in love with something, you just kind of move towards that your whole life. So.
Wow. And where do you come up with your like even this piece that? Sorry, this is the one with the plastic.
Yeah.
Like, because it's a fascinating one.
Thanks.
Where do you, like, what's your inspiration behind that, or where do you get your...
So it's a photo of my girlfriend, Melissa, and she is obviously a looker. So I take a lot of reference photos. I've painted her like 3 or 4 times. But yeah, with photorealism and portraiture, like the photo is, it's the piece, and I'm recreating that on a wall stylistically. And yeah, this one we did just random kind of photo shoot in the house. Used many different kind of props and stuff, and one of them was a shower curtain. And once they did that, the photographer and her and I saw some of the photos. I don't know, this one just kind of struck me. And so I've been sitting on it for about like 2 or 3 years, maybe. And then awesome festivals like this one are the opportunities that I get to paint, kind of what I want to. So took this opportunity and gave it my best with this one. It was a real challenging one.
It is really challenging, and actually when I don't know how anyone else, but when I look at it, I'm not sure if I feel that it's a little frightening or if it's lovely, and it kind of hits both of the...
Most of my work is both of those.
You're challenging kind of both sides of the coin. You could flip it over and you're like, oh, is she happy or is she...
Yeah. It's kind of morose. Loosely based
Morose,
on kind of some stuff going on in America right now.
Yeah.
So,
Great, okay.
She's being weighed down,
Okay.
kind of asphyxiated.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And then obviously, and I mean, how long did it take you to paint that?
3.5 days, 3 or 4.
Okay, wow. And then we have Rashida, which was, I know that went up first, I think.
Yeah, we hit that one like as soon as
you got
as soon as I got here.
Yeah, in anticipation of the final, right?
Yeah.
That went well. And that was kind of just a quick...
Yeah, we like 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days on that one.
And do you feel energized by your work?
Yeah. I mean, we're all our biggest critics, so every time I look at a finished piece, usually like a day or 2 after I leave the country or wherever I painted, I'm like, damn, I I should have done something different, you know, like.
Do you all feel like that?
tweaked it.
Would that be kind of a recurring theme for you all?
Yes.
Yes. KMG?
Yeah.
Yes. Shane?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. I think
Okay, we're going to come to you now in a minute. And you've just finished yours, so hopefully you're just chilling now. You're not beating
no, I'm
yourself
probably
up.
in that mindset, actually.
We might move on to Shane. So Shane, this piece is really cool and very different. Can you tell us, but first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your own background and your foray into, this world?
Yeah, so I started painting graffiti when I was 16. And yeah, it was kind of a funny one. I kind of just fell into it. A friend of mine was painting graffiti, and I had a tag, crap. That was what I wrote everywhere. So I wrote crap on walls. And
You wrote the word crap.
crap, yeah, that was my first tag, yeah. So I wrote that for about 10 years or so. Like, it kind of made sense because of the C and the P curve. So I like to kind of have the piece, the letters kind of balance out, so I'd have a kick at the end. So I like the humour side of it as well. So that kind of kept me entertained for a few years. And then I was in art college. I studied graphic design and kind of became more aware of street art. Also kind of studied like the Bauhaus and was more interested in design, and kind of left art college. And then I was still painting graffiti, but I was kind of looking at kind of like, I was painting graffiti that came from New York, so it was kind of subway art and style wars. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, kind of spread graffiti around the world. So I was kind of influenced by that. My graffiti was kind of influenced by Irish graffiti writers, but also originated from New York. So I was kind of looking at identity a little bit as an Irish person. What would an Irish style look like? Or so I kind of looked at a book of Kells, and I started taking elements from that and mixing in with my graffiti, kind of like the zoomorphic animals and the knotwork, and painted that for a few years, and then switched my tag around again to fact, and I was doing that for a while. And then I was doing characters as well. I was kind of exploring street art. So for me, like, graffiti is letters, street art's more kind of characters. It's not like a letter form. So I was kind of looking at, well, if I want to do this as a living, to work as an artist, how would I do that? So I decided to work under my own name, and I started to kind of look at a different way of making work. So I ended up doing this kind of geometric forms. And I was reading a lot of books at the time, and influenced by, like, the Bauhaus was a kind of big influence for me. So yeah, kind of ended up setting up a studio in 2016 in Galway, and I am based there still, and I work on paintings and I paint murals. So this is a good example of a kind of work in progress at the minute. I'm kind of conscious of like the pieces around me, so I put a white background on it. But you can kind of see that there's like blocks of colour overlaying, so it's kind of like that knotwork element is still there, and the over and under effect of like the knotwork still kind of repeats my work. So it's kind of like just a big circle of colour, exploring colour really at the minute. So it's funny you should say, how do I feel about the piece? After doing it, I'm still kind of fresh, so I'm kind of like, I always kind of feel like there's an imposter syndrome of being an artist. But it's interesting as well, like talking here with everyone. It's like painting a mural, so like this is work in progress, so it doesn't feel like it's resolved. So it's a little bit like talking like this, so it's kind of, you're performing in a way a little bit. So yeah,
Wow.
that's me.
Thank you. We might go back, Ed, in terms of, are you paint or spray or both?
Both. Absolutely anything that turns up.
Anything
at all, really. Just doesn't really matter. If it's got oranges in it, and it'll go on the wall.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Just
Whatever's
keep
a tan. Yeah.
And how long were you painting your work? I might just go back here.
That was a 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days. Yeah. Some late starts due to the night before. But,
That's what we're here for. It is a festival.
They make you. They put these drinks All right, fair enough. And then it's 2 o'clock. And outrageous, really.
And when you're painting, are you quick? Are you slow? This was all kind of the process behind it in terms of actually having it mapped out? Are you working from kind of like you're obviously working from a design in your head, and you have it mapped out, and then are you fast, slow?
Pretty fast. It will come. It's a slow start, and then it kind of comes together very quickly. You get a complex base, complex kind of chaotic base, and then it always works dark to light. And the same way that you look at it, dark to light, I paint it dark to light, and so there's a lot of. It always seems like the foreground has chaos and a lot of kind of violence and things, and then the middle ground is some kind of negotiation part, and then the background distance is some kind of resolution, whatever that is. So, yeah, I spend a lot of time in the chaos, and then
It's your happy place.
Pardon?
Your happy place.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you just get into it. If you can find that, I'm sure it's exactly the same with everyone. If you can find the moments of flow state where as everything kind of disappears and just things are happening in front of you, the hands are moving, just no real thought.
I think that's what we're all trying to do, isn't it? In our work, trying to find flow. If you
sure.
that must be an amazing.
Well, that's you got to enjoy. You got to love the process. That's where you get the kicks on. Yeah, because we were talking before about like when you step away from it, right? And like there's always something not quite right about it. It's like you're not going to create the work that like, oh, I've done that. I've completed art. There it goes. What next? Office job. The whole thing is like because desire crumbles like ash as soon as you touch it. There's no creating work is the desire of desire. You have to keep going.
Yeah, thank you. And KMG, what about yourself in terms of the materials and all of that side of it?
I forgot what we were talking about there, so I'm glad you reminded me. I prefer spray paint. So emulsion background. So it took me a whole day I hate emulsion the walls. It's my least favourite thing to do. I hate it, but you need to get the colour background to it. So that took a whole day.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me move on to your one. Because you would have had was it white when you got there?
It was like a lemony yellow, I think. And there's like. To the left, there's a big long wall as well.
Yeah, sorry, it cut a little bit.
No, it's fine, don't worry about it.
I wanted to get the door in. I love the fact that there's a door in another wall.
Yeah,
and if you look at it straight on, you can...
there's a point in the pavement that across the road where I stared at every day because the legs, you can't really tell, but they line up. So it's getting getting that perspective right. You can have to choose one spot. And that's the most challenging bit. I've had a few of those walls recently. I don't know why people keep doing it to me.
You've probably because you've done it so successfully.
She's done it once, she'll do it again.
Done it so successfully, yeah.
But it's fun because once you get that, you're like, okay. And you get that sense of like, it's quite satisfying when you get it right. But yeah, so again, my stuff's quite simple in terms of composition. So the hardest bit for me is actually sketching it all out. Yeah. I'm really dyslexic and dyspraxic, so I can't use grids. I just can't use them. I just can't. My head doesn't work that way. So I just freehand sketch it. So that for me takes the longest time is stepping back, putting it out, stepping back, and then painting it all in. Again, I've got that short attention span, which is why I like spray paint. It's quick, it's fast. You can get work done quite quickly. This week I've been taking it's been really nice to just chill. So I think 5 days I was working on it, which I quite enjoyed because this year, for some reason, festivals keep giving me 3 walls. So I've had 10 days to do 3 walls. I'm like, oh, shit. So this week I've actually quite enjoyed just taking my time and having fun, and it's been a really nice process.
And where was this wall? Were you, what's the gable? Is it a house?
It's a house, yeah. I've absolutely no idea what the street's called. But it's a house, Bernie. Shout out to Bernie. Don't think she's here.
Bernie, okay.
Just left her key in the door. Just could let myself come and go as I wanted. Just really nice woman. She kept bringing me Pepsis.
Is that your drink of choice?
No, but I'm not going to turn down. It'd be rude. Just turn out.
So lots of caffeine. Love
it. They were sugar-free Pepsis. So But yeah, so it's just a really enjoyable process.
And that perspective thing is challenging, and actually even just for you all, like, you know, kind of that constantly running back, going forward, like.
Yeah, I think I've always called painting murals, it's like labouring with a paintbrush or labouring with a spray can. It actually just feels like graft. Sometimes it's not when you're in the studio, it actually is quite labour and mentally intensive to create these walls. It's hard to forget that when you see like other people do, because I'm always fascinated by how other people work and how easy they make it look. But you forget it's taken years to get to that point, but it is still quite physically and emotionally, it can be quite draining.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And JEKS, for yourself, in terms of your process, and how do you sketch it out, or what's your approach to a wall?
Well, I use spray paint pretty much exclusively on the walls. I'll do like a base coat with emulsion, prep the wall, whatever the background is, usually is like a base color or something like that. But it's all spray paint. I'll use a gridding technique. A lot of people call it the doodle grid. But you just make unique markings on the wall and then use that to size your piece out. So it sounds technical, but it's so easy. Like once you do it once, like you're like, oh.
But like, so do you sketch that, or do you just spray do you spray it on without, you have your grids, so you kind of know vaguely where things are going, and then you just get your spray cans and go? Or do you sketch out the...
No, I'll do the complete sketch.
Okay.
Or sometimes I'll sketch the part that I'm going to paint that day, and then like complete it, and then the next day show up and sketch that part and paint some more. So it usually ends up with the same
and are you
product.
Like, so you had a few little windows at the top, so that was, and then you've got kind of a door at the side. And what were you painting on? What is this space that you're at here?
It's a scooter shop.
Oh,
they sell scooters.
Okay, the scooter shop. So did you
they
also
were
paint
awesome.
a scooter? Was there a scooter going around?
There was tons of scooters going around.
Was there a scooter that was painted? No, they're not painted that one. Okay, so they gifted a scooter. Did they gift a scooter and then Has anyone used it?
I had a go. It wasn't for me.
Fantastic. Okay, so people will be able to know where this is. Okay, fantastic. And then Shane, in terms of your own, so you're on a cherry picker. Was anyone else on a cherry picker? You were on a cherry picker. You were on
Their lift.
Yeah. And were you on a cherry picker or ladders or?
Oh, same
as that. Okay. And so in terms of this, it's not very easy to get off that and come back and figure out what you're doing. What's your process like?
Yeah, so this one was actually a bit of a nightmare.
We like hearing about nightmares.
Yeah, because sometimes you're designing something from a photograph. So I designed this mural, I think it was back in May, and I'd seen the wall, but I didn't really pay attention to it. And I think sometimes you don't realise what the wall is until you get there. So I use string and I kind of a marker to grid it all out, measure it and use a level, and that's how I kind of just drawing, but on a wall. So the ledges or the windowsills actually blocked the string, so it made it really difficult to kind of map it up. And it's like 3 or 4 overlapping circles, so I needed it all to be correct. So then that created a problem where I had to figure out a way to break the circles because the geometry was slightly off towards the top. So that was what was a bit of a challenge for me. Then the other thing was, it's on a really, I don't know if you know where that wall is. It's there near the Fitzwilliam, and it's on the other side. Or it's on the side of that street where there's it's very narrow, and so we had to block off the street. But people kept wanting to walk down the street, and then so you're dealing with that, and they were getting angry that the street was blocked. Some of them. Then there was a lot of traffic going down all the time, so that creates a more intense environment to paint. And then we had to move the machine in every morning and move it out. So that takes 15 minutes each evening and morning. And then the machine didn't like the area. So we had to, it took 5 times to kind of re-level it. And then the first day, it just wouldn't work at all. So we were driving it in, driving it back. So that's just the things.
I'm feeling anxious just listening to you.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a head wreck.
It sounds stressful.
So their things are just are part of painting in public spaces.
Yeah.
You just have to deal with. So yeah, it's just funny sometimes when you're designing something like on an iPad, and then the reality of painting it. So
Yeah. Adapting to what comes your way. And you also have like 369 windows.
yeah, the windows aren't as a problem really. It's just the ledges was for me.
Yeah.
But that's just the type of work I make. And yeah, like with this, like the original wall had a lot of mold on it, so I had to clean it, and that took a half a day, and then painted twice. So I've been here for a while. But,
Well, thank you. It looks wonderful.
yeah, but my family, 3 of my sisters live here.
Okay.
So I really wanted to paint something cool that they'd see, and my nieces and nephews and see. So
That's a nice connection. I met your sister, one of your sisters.
Yeah,
earlier,
she's there. She's a ceramicist. She's based in Waterford, yeah. So I suppose sometimes that creates pressure. So then, you talked about like your worst critic or whatever, or imposter syndrome. Sometimes you just set a standard for yourself or an idea, and then sometimes you put maybe too much pressure on yourself to try and achieve that. So I suppose that's just part of being an artist as well.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. And actually, Ed, we didn't ask you, where was your piece? Just for peace, so they know, what were you painting on?
Oh, it's Andrews Road.
And was it somebody's house, Gable End?
One for one. Who refused to see the design, refused to stayed away from going around and seeing the actual painting until it was finished. Like incredible
Pressure.
faith, just faith. And she'd already, when she finally came out, she'd already made a little thank you card with a little painting of a Scotty dog on the front. It was really, really sweet. She's just like, can I keep you? Can you
Nice.
be my granny? I think I love you a little bit. Yeah, amazing human being. And I've never seen that before. Never seen someone refuse to look at the piece until it's finished.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
Anyone else? That's, very patient, isn't it? And
yeah, I couldn't do that.
yeah, no, I couldn't either. Interesting. Do you know what I want to do? I just want to take us away and kind of live your lives for a minute and ask, kind of, as an international mural artist, it's coming. What are the perks? What's it like to be, doing this in so many different places, to get into your zone in a different zone? What's that like? Does anyone want to go first?
Yeah, it's cool.
Does it take
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, it's humbling. It's nice to be invited places and for people to trust you to create work on the street for a community. I think that's they're putting their trust in you as an artist. I think that's quite special. It's a cool way to see the world. You get to go to different places and you see it from a different perspective. You're not a tourist because you get to know the locals and you work in that environment. So you get to see each place from, a different perspective, which is really cool. It's just fun.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Coming from a music background and like touring and stuff, that kind of gave me the foundation that I needed to do what I do, where I'm always on the road, basically living out of a suitcase. Rarely will I fully unpack. When I get home, I'll just take the dirty clothes out, wash those, and then repack them. Yeah. So it's kind of rough, but the one thing I did start doing is trying to stay a little longer in each country. So I'm not just working and then catching a flight the next day. So I have a day or two to explore and kind of absorb the area or, culture wherever I'm at. So.
Yeah. And how long have you been in Ireland for?
13 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Twice in the last 2 months.
Really?
Yeah, I painted in Derry last month.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
They had their festival up there as well. Fantastic. And what about Ed or Shane?
Well, I'm Irish, so it doesn't feel like it's international.
What's it like being in Ireland?
No, but in terms of...
I travel a bit, painting, and it's just kind of weird sometimes just to see like people's reaction to the work and stuff like that. I think that's like it's cool, but I like painting in public spaces and I like traveling. It's cool to see new places, But for me, like, I do love being in the studio and just working and that kind of, like, I said mindful in my bio and that, but it's like I like being in the studio working, so there's only a certain amount of energy you can give to go out and paint those public spaces. So I suppose with me, there's an extra element with the travelling because it takes energy to get there and you're away from home and stuff like that. So that's kind of, it's always good to be invited to go places as well, like, so.
Yeah.
So that's a different dynamic to it.
Yeah. And Ed, you've got the different things happening and travelling around all summer. I know summer is busy.
It's been a busy summer, yeah. But I mean, you don't go to a place for the place as much as you can. Well, yeah, the people are always a bit more kind of important than the place, because it's like, it's a town with buildings in it.
Yeah.
But the people are always different.
Point, yeah.
They're always different, and there is a certain kind of, I don't want to say arrogance, but to go like, and here's my thing, everyone, bye, and kind of like putting yourself out into. There needs to be kind of an openness into what you do, and so there is, and because so it feeds back. A lot of people do. There's a whole lot of artists who will come here, or go to the place and, like, as you were saying, study the local areas, and do more kind of heritage work, and others not. We all have different approaches, but it's all designed. It's not designed for you, It's kind of designed. There has to be a kind of level. It's a service of sorts. So there is a responsibility. There is for your public, because it's not just. It's not in a gallery. You can do anything at all. Absolutely anything. You can pile bricks in a corner. You can have blood streaming down the walls. You can have nudity and all manner of madness in there. Fine, because it's in the gallery. It's in that magical circle where anything can happen. When it's out on the street, you can't take away the street from the art. It's like that's part of it. So you got to do something.
Have you had any challenging, interactions, or any of you, like, do you ever go somewhere and paint something and, I've seen it here where there's just been kind of really heated discussion over a piece, and I love when that happens, actually, when people are divided over work. It really starts people start to think about what they're looking at. Does anyone have any kind of anything they'd like to share?
I think if everybody likes what you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately, you can't please everyone, and that is I always say, street art and graffiti and murals, it's a democracy, and if you don't like it, you can paint over it. Not so much with murals, more with graffiti and street art, but that's what I like about it, and it creates those conversations where even if they're negative, you're still getting people to think and react and respond, and that's what art is, or that's what art is to me. It's a tool to provoke people and conversations. So I think you can't have the good without the bad.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Oh, there's always going to be somebody who has something negative to say about what you create, because it's out there for them to make, that judgment on what you created. So it's definitely part of what we do is, unfortunately, having to, see that. But it's mainly like social media and stuff like that. Yeah. And it makes it very easy for somebody to write something, nasty or, but for, every one bad, comment or whatever you want to say, there's, hundreds or thousands of people that have something good to say. So that's kind of the way I try to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in terms of your experience, so going to festivals like this one or other festivals, what is it like, hanging out with your fellow artists? Would you have all kind of known each other before this? Any of you? Who are you again?
I've met Ed a few times.
Yeah.
His sister is a painter, and I know her fella as well. So, like, you kind of just meet people over the years. Like, I painted a lot of graffiti jams and things like that. So, but sometimes you have a connection through Instagram, so you kind of know people's work before you know them.
Yeah.
So, like, what's cool about it is, like, my girlfriend's a photographer, but I can chat to her about, with the rest of the crew here about painting murals and art and what it's like to live as an artist and make money and all that. So that's kind of a nice thing you can chat in the evening times about, and you're in this little bubble for a while, and then the festival's over and then you're back home, back to normal life. So yeah, that's kind of.
And how have you found? I have to ask. Like, how have you found Waterford and your experience of the festival? And I know you had Pepsi's dropped out to you. Has it been a good one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been raining too much, so that's kind of made
That's been
it
really
more
good,
enjoyable
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
I mean, you've had to wear sun cream even some
Yeah,
days.
yeah. I got a bit burnt, so
No, it's excellent.
Highlights, lowlights.
The lady in the house, but also she's just great. She's just really great. Okay, but just seeing everyone. This weird thing with it's quite a social procedure. It may seem like quite solitary, like up our lift, but it is quite a social one. It comes from like graffiti is a thing that people do together a lot of the time. Everyone kind of gets together, and it's not like illustration. It's not like sculpture or like tattooing or stuff where people don't really hang out. It's very much a communal thing, and so when festivals go on, it's kind of just a continuation of that, and you go, oh, hey man, how you doing? Haven't seen you since the last thing. Oh, I haven't seen you, KMG since the last thing. La 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 la. Kind of a global network of folks that you see now and again. And just all on the, and it's a lot of the time it's like, oh, thank God, we can actually talk about stuff that you care about.
Yes, that other people don't get. And can I ask you, when you listened to Pat's presentation earlier in terms of the archive and digitization of the work, how do you feel about that?
A loaded question.
Sorry, and maybe we won't get into but because it's something that I've been involved with this for many years, and we've had different reactions to even taking photos and pushing it out, and who owns it and where does it go, but preserving, I love looking. I was looking back at old photos of stuff that's gone now, and I was like, oh God, I remember that, and I remember the experience of meeting the artist and the challenges with the ladders. I don't think we're allowed to use ladders very high anymore. I don't think we were ever meant to use those, but anyway. I mean, I'm open. Like, does anyone have anything, like how, because it is transient, I suppose.
I think murals less so than street art and graffiti, but the more mural festivals are, the more transient murals are becoming. I think it's kind of mind-blowing that the scene has got to this point where people want to archive it. Because if you think about street art specifically as an art movement, it's relatively young. I think, wasn't it Shepard Fairey's piece being put of Obama in the MoMA was the first kind of official piece of street art in a gallery. So that's not that long ago. So to have people actually studying it in university now, or for people to be wanting to archive it, it is cool, but I do find it kind of fascinating. Yeah. It seems to have just kind of warp speeded. But it's cool that there is an archive there, because as you say, here today, gone tomorrow. So yeah.
It's always, isn't it? Because at last New Art we discussed. There's a lot of lectures about the idea of living history, living heritage.
Yeah,
living heritage.
Living heritage. Mm-hmm.
And like, what happens when you take the work out of the street? Does it stop being? It's like when you take the street away from the art, then it's like, is it still street art? It's like, not really. You've just kind of entombed it. You've mummified it and put in a sarcophagus inside the Great Temple. And it doesn't have that kind of, like, work should have a certain level of ephemerality, or like it's almost kind of like an event, because it's so time-based. Here today, gone tomorrow, or like someone will throw something out over it.
That's it. You wonder if documenting it is taking away the charm of it at the same time, though.
Which is a different thing. I think it's just a different medium.
It's kind of there's many facets to the conversation.
And the performance piece, and
I don't see it as a performance, but I can understand why people do see it as a performance. I thought that was an interesting terminology. I've never heard it described in that way before, so that's quite an interesting thing to consider. I think there's a reason why a lot of us paint anonymously, because I would say we're the opposite of performative. We want our art to speak more so than us as the artist. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to consider, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated by that, and the identity and the anonymity around this. How do the rest of you feel about that? in terms of the art speaking for you? And
Just to go back for a second,
yes,
he talked about like he's documenting the murals and his technology, but every artist documents their own work as well. So we all have our own database, or not database. We all have photographs. I have lots of graffiti that's in like a little shoebox and stuff like that. So for me, it's kind of, it was always part of it. When I first started painting graffiti, was just to document it. Part of it because of the location I was in, because I live in Navan, so there was no one really around that saw it. So I would take a photograph, show it to someone, the pieces I made and stuff. So it's just always been the case that I documented it. But now you see like all the graffiti writers bringing out books and stuff like that. So it's always just changing the way you kind of view it, like, and so like it's just weird to see the technology in use. And then I was kind of looking at the technology, and I was like, I wonder how much of it is like, is it digitalized, is it all true to the image, you know? I was like, was the computer changing it in any way? So I was kind of like even looking at that, or even just what it, you know, I photograph from a certain way, the light changes the image, and it doesn't look the same as it does in the photograph, as it does in real life, you know. There was a cool thing online, I don't know what website it is, but they documented one wall changing all the time, so just kept taking photographs and going back, so then you could just like move like a little thing, and you could see all the different graffiti and murals and street art painted on top of it.
Street view sometimes.
Yeah.
Run back through the timeline.
That's really interesting to me, like the kind of, like I love seeing an old tag or an old piece that's been there for like whatever 15 years or something. That interests me, or like a really old piece that's still there decaying, there's mold on it. So that's the bit I kind of want that to stay.
yeah,
You know, even though someone wants the gentrification and just, you know, paint a mural on it, but I see there's still value to that, like the kind of like, I know there was hobos that used to leave their mark on trams or on different places and stuff like that, so even that has its own story in America, like they marked freight trains and stuff like that, so there's loads of kind of little stories.
But even though the pieces are gone, I think, would you say nostalgia was quite a big part of, I mean, any kind of inward-looking scene or subculture always has, it's quite sentimental about its nostalgia, about its history, about its people that came before and everything, and it's that. So the fact that there is a kind of a temporary, eventival kind of aspect to it, to a lot of it. You were saying in quite kind of like, rose-tinted glasses, kind of looking back on, about.
honestly, yes.
Yeah,
like
about how
emotive. It's kind of an emotional, like, you know, my kids have actually, I've had 3 kids through the last 10 years, and I was at different stages of my own life, and it's the kind of frantically running through the town, looking at all these artists. I have great memories of just the challenges, the paint is wrong, or whatever's happening. It's, and the more, like, you know, the difficult, like even with cherry pickers, the way you describe that, it's all of these challenges that are so memorable, and then to see the piece afterwards, it's such it's such a big thing. And with bits of, I love the Rashid Adeleki. There's a big chunk of plaster missing from the bottom right. I actually love that. It just kind of makes the whole thing. It just sits so nicely. But yeah, it is very nostalgic. Look, on that note, I would like to thank our 4 artists, KMG, JEKS, Shane and Ed, for coming and for sharing and for being so open and honest with us, particularly after a long week. And we really appreciate it. So we might just give them a hand. Thank you so much.